Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to this North Western Area Planning Committee meeting on Wednesday, the 26th of August 2020. My name is Councillor Maddie Thompson and I'm the chairman of this committee. This meeting is being held under regulations which came into effect on 4th of April in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. There are just a few housekeeping issues to run through. First of all, please could I ask everyone present in the meeting to ensure your microphone remains muted and your video feed off when you're not addressing the committee. This will reduce background noises and avoid any unintentional disturbances. The meeting is being hosted remotely, streamed live and recorded, and by being present in the meeting, you are giving your consent to being recorded. Members and officers, during each item, please use the chat function of the meeting to indicate if you wish to speak, and I will then invite you at the appropriate time. Members are reminded that apart from indicating you wish to speak or that you have to leave the meeting, the chat function should not be used for questions or any other purpose. Members, when speaking and referring to agenda papers, please reference a page or paragraph number and keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. When invited to speak, please ensure you turn on your microphone and video if possible. Now, if I may ask officers taking part in the meeting to introduce themselves, starting with Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee.
Good afternoon, Chairman. I am Matthew Lee and I am Lead Specialist Place at Malden District Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on my list is Mr. Johnson.
Good afternoon, Chair. My name is Michael Johnson. I am Development Management Lead Specialist. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe you'll be reading out the submissions from that are made by applicants and objectors and so on.
Yes, I will, Chairman. Yes. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Just checking. Right, next we have Ms. Parker-Haynes.
Good afternoon. I am Hayley Parker-Haynes and I am a Senior Caseworker in Development Management here at Malden District Council.
Thank you. And Ms. Bowles?
Good afternoon. My name is Hannah. I am a Specialist in Development Management. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Bird?
Good afternoon. I'm Tara Bird. I'm the committee clerk for this meeting. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any other officers present who are taking part in this meeting as opposed to supporting us through the IT? I'll take that as a no. Tara, could you please carry out a roll call of members to confirm who's in attendance? Thank you.
Yes, Chairman. Members, I'll call your names out alphabetically. If you could just confirm if you're here, please. Councillor Bamford.
Yes, I'm here, Tara. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Councillor Durham.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvis.
Present, Tara.
Thank you very much. Councillor Keys.
Hello, Tara. Present.
Councillor Siddle.
Good afternoon, Tara. Present.
Thank you. And Councillor Mrs. Thompson, obviously you're present.
Certainly am, yes.
And Councillor Miss White.
Yes, present.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any other members in attendance? Could they please introduce themselves?
Good afternoon and welcome. It's Chrissy Morris.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Anybody else? Can't see anybody else. No, thank you. Right, apologies for absence, item number 2 on the agenda. May I have apologies for absence, please, Ms. Bird?
Yes, Chairman. Apologies have been received from Councillor Mrs. Fleming and Councillor Morley. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Item 3 is the minutes of the 29th of July. They've recommended that the minutes be approved as a true and accurate record. You can find them on pages 7 to 12. Members, may I please take them as read? Rather than assent, I'm going to ask for dissent. So if you have anything to raise about the minutes, please let me know. Have you all had time to read them? If you haven't, please let me know. If there are any matters of accuracy, can you please let me know? Okay, in that case, I'm going to put a recommendation that we do accept them as a record of the meeting.
That's fine, Chairman.
Okay, everybody else happy? If you're not happy, please say so now. Brilliant, thank you. Okay, we don't have any other members wishing to speak. We've done the vote. So, declarations of interests, item 4, I have to read this, to disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other pecuniary interests or non-pecuniary interests relating to items of business on the agenda having regard to paragraphs 6 to 8 inclusive of the Code of Conduct for members. Members are reminded that they're also required to disclose any such interests as soon as they become aware should the need arise through the meeting. If any member has an interest to declare, please use the chat function now to indicate, and I will invite you to speak. I have a hand up from Councillor White. Councillor White, I've also got Councillor Durham. Well, I'll go ladies first since I spotted the hand first, if I may.
Yeah,
Councillor White,
sorry for that, Chairman. On the first agenda on the item, which is Oakfield Farm, I'm going to declare an interest purely because last time his planning application got turned down under delegated powers, he got very upset with John and myself. I will participate in the discussion, but I will not take a vote on it.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Durham, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you hear me?
I can, thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. A non-pecuniary interest, Chairman, as a member of Essex County Council, who are statutory consultees in a variety of matters pertaining to planning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, members. Item 5, the first planning application we're looking at, which is Oakfield Farm, Hyde Chase, Purley. The details can be found on pages 13 to 28. Sorry, I've just spotted an email pop up. I will call on the officer in a moment to present this item. Members, just a reminder, if you wish to speak, please make this known by using the chat function and I will come to you in turn. So Ms Parker-Haynes, could you present the report, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Planning permission is sought for the demolition of the existing barn on site and the replacement with a 3-bedroom dwelling. The site currently has a lawful B1 use. This is the location plan, so the existing barn is here and the proposed replacement dwelling would be here. This is the block plan. These are the proposed elevations.
Sorry, Chairman, for clarity, I'm not seeing anything. Is everybody else?
Oh, okay. Well asked. I actually can.
I can see everything.
That's fine. That's fine as long as the members can. As long as you can, obviously you're the ones relevant for the debate. That's fine. Just I wasn't getting anything. Okay, that's great.
Okay. If anyone else, could you indicate if you haven't? Most people are indicating yes, but I don't want to leave anyone out. You can always have the slides emailed to you. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that, Mr. Lee. Let's carry on if you're all right with not seeing it.
Thank you. These are the floor and roof plans. The elevations of the existing barn and photographs of the site from Hyde Chase. In 2014, an outline application with all matters reserved was submitted for the construction of a new dwelling and double garage alongside the demolition of the barn. The dwelling the subject of this application was to be located in the same place as the barn. This application was refused and subsequently dismissed at appeal due to the harmful effect the development would have on the character and appearance of the area, and that the site would not meet the sustainable transport aims of the MPPF. The dwelling proposed by this current application is to be set closer to the boundary with Hyde Chase. This application is recommended for refusal as the site lies outside of the defined settlement boundary of Purley, where policies of restraint apply. The proposed development is poorly located relative to facilities, services and sustainable modes of transport. Furthermore, the proposed development would result in the loss of an employment use whereby it is not being demonstrated that there is no demand. The proposal would also substantially alter the character and intrinsic beauty of the countryside. Finally, insufficient information has been provided to show that the development would not have an unacceptable impact in terms of ecology. It is not considered that there are any new material considerations that would support the application to such a degree as to outweigh the previous inspector's decision. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Right, the recommendation as set out within the report is as follows. The planning application 200472 Oakfield Farm be refused for the reasons as detailed in the report. I put that before you. I have got Councillor Durham waiting to speak, but members, I'm going to put that before you. This actually doesn't require a seconder, but I'm going to ask for one so I have an idea that at least, at least where we're going. So, Councillor Dara? Councillor Bamford?
Oh. Well, I'm just saying I'm going to second the proposal.
For the recommendation. Thank you very much. Councillor Durham?
Well, I'll third it then. I totally agree. I think the officers have this one absolutely right. There's no significant change from the previously refused and the previously refused at appeal. So, yeah, I sincerely hope that this is refused. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go first, actually, to Councillor White, as she's the only board member we have present. If you'd like to go next, Councillor White, please do. Rather sum up at the end.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just to echo what my previous councillor said in relation to the previous planning history, but as I say, I won't take a vote on this, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Bamford, I have you down to speak. Is that?
Yeah, yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I know I seconded the proposal, but I just want to ask a question of the officers, because in the conclusion on page 15, it does mention policy T1 as sustainable transport, which is part of the conclusion, but T1 is not mentioned in the reasons for refusal. So I just wondered why that was, why that policy has not been included.
Thank you. I think I know the answer, but I'm not gonna risk misleading anyone. So, Miss Parker Haynes, or Mr. Johnson, or Mr. Lee, please. Hello. Oh, Mr. Lee.
Pick that
thank you.
By the looks of it. The Chairman. Yeah. I will take you to exactly the wording of policy T1. If you just. That's around sustainable transport, and particularly is aimed at the strategic sites and looking at new, larger forms of infrastructure to support that. So while that is the broad brushstroke, when you're actually drilling to the specifics for the reason for refusal, it is just specifically in relation to the impacts of accessibility of this site, which is policy T2. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. And my thought was that the report does actually form part of the decision, and therefore it's available to anyone who needs it. Is that right? Tell me, please, if I'm not.
Through you, Chairman, if the application is refused, obviously that would form part of the basis. Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, members, anyone else to speak? Does that answer your question, Councillor Bamford? Did you want to come back at all?
Well, yes, partly, but I mean, T2 isn't included in the refusal either. But as you say, if the report is taken into account at appeal, then I suppose we've covered ourselves. But I just wondered why that wasn't included. That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. OK, members, I don't have anyone else to speak.
Through you, Chairman, if members want, we can add that for reason to the reason refusal. That's fine. Members wish.
I'm happy to add that to the recommendation. Yeah. Is everybody else?
So just to clarify, Madam Chair, we're adding T2 to the policy for reason of a refusal. Is that correct?
Yes. Is that correct, Mr. Lee? Mr. Lee?
Give me 2 seconds. Sorry, Chairman. I just want to get down to read the actual one. Right. Okay. Well, to you, Chairman, actually reading the report, obviously, reason for refusal 2, while I'm looking at the agenda, is in relation to the Essex Coast recreation. So it wouldn't form an issue in relation to that reason for refusal. Oh, I got it would be it would be reason for refusal 1 that T2 should be added to, I would have thought.
Are we confusing our 1s and our 2s? Did you mean T2 the policy, not reason 2?
I think, Madam Chairman, we just leave it as it is. It's fine.
Thank you. That certainly makes things simple. Thank you. So, members, I propose to go to a vote. I think we will have a roll call, please. Thank you. Ms. Bird, if you could go through a roll call.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, I'll call your names out alphabetically. If you could just indicate if you're for, against or abstaining, please. Starting with Councillor Bamford, please.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Durham.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvis.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Keys.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Siddle.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Thompson.
For.
Thank you. And Councillor Miss White.
Abstain because I'm not taking a part in this vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's
so
what I wanted.
The result of that is 6 for, nobody against and 1 abstention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so that item is refused in line with the officer's recommendation and according to the recommendation. So item 6 is our next planning application, Navoli Farm, Pump Lane, Purley, if I've pronounced that correctly. That's found on pages 29 to 46. There is a members update in relation to this application that has been circulated, and you'll be able to find it on mod.gov. In a moment, I'll call on the officer to present the item. Members, I'll just reminder, if you wish to speak, please let me know on the chat function and I will come to you in turn. Right, Ms Bowles, can you please present the report?
Thank you, Chair. So planning permission is sought for the demolition of the existing outbuildings and construction of 6 dwellings comprising 2 terraces of 3 dwellings with associated landscaping and access works. And before I begin the presentation, I just want to clarify that the details contained within paragraph 5.1.3 of the officer's report do not relate to this application. So please accept my apologies for the error and any confusion that may have caused.
Sorry, may I ask, sorry to interrupt, but is that the reason for the update, or is there anything else covered that you feel you should mention in the update?
No, that's the only update I've got.
Thank you very much. Sorry to interrupt. Please carry on.
No, thank you. So we have the location plan, and we've got the block plan. As you can see, there's the 2 row of 3 dwellings facing each other, and the existing dwellings, which are just here, have been incorporated into the scheme, and a garage is proposed to serve each of those dwellings. Got the existing elevation and floor plans of the buildings currently on site. This is building 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 5 and 6, and all of these buildings are proposed to be demolished. Proposed elevations, as you can see, there's undercroft parking at the front here, and flat roof elements to the rear which accommodate the parking area and ground floor accommodation. Floor plans and the roof plan. This element here is the flat roof. We've got photos of the site. And the area to the front of the site. So the application site lies outside of the defined settlement boundaries where policies of restraint apply. The proposed development will substantially alter the character of the site and surrounding area and have an unacceptable visual impact on the countryside through the urbanisation and domestication of the site. The harm is exacerbated by the design, layout and density of the proposed development, which is in stark contrast to the existing development within the surrounding area. Therefore, the application is recommended for refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms Bowles. Right, under the Council's public participation scheme, we have received 1 submission from the applicant. In line with the scheme, I have reviewed the submission and an officer, Mr Johnson, will now read this out, allocating 2 minutes only for the reading of the submission. I'll just interject, whereas I'm normally very, very strict on the 2 minutes, I appreciate different people read at different speeds, and my belief is that this certainly can be read in 2 minutes, even if we don't quite manage it. So, Mr Johnson, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Submission from Anthony Allen, the applicant. My name is Anthony, I am the applicant, and I wanted to personally address members today. As you would have noted from the pictures, The site comprises a number of old and tired buildings. In my opinion, these buildings are of no architectural merit, are costing a lot to maintain, and do not positively contribute to the countryside. I am looking to replace these buildings with 6 two-bed houses that I feel match the pattern set by the neighbouring homes. These homes would be starter homes to assist young families within Purley to purchase a property in the area they live, thereby getting them onto the housing ladder. Members would have also noted from the officer's report that, in summary, the officer level objection to the proposed development relates to the site's location within the countryside, loss of equine use, and that alternative uses haven't been discussed. The case officer's reasons for refusal does not relate to harm to neighbouring amenity, parking or highway matters, flooding, etc. I know members will be aware of this. However, the site does benefit from planning permission for a residential dwelling, at which time consideration of alternative uses was made and the council accepted alternative uses not being viable. My house and its land is partially located within the defined settlement boundary. All the buildings are used for equine use and therefore can be rightly considered previously developed land, which national policy supports. It is disappointing to note that the case officer has dismissed the benefits of providing 2-bedroom homes as part of the scheme. I note they state the authority has a 5-year housing land supply. I also note they believe this will deliver the large shortfall in 2-bedroom homes. However, given that the local plan has been in place since 2017 and there is still a large shortfall of these types of property, this seems unrealistic. I would like to draw members' attention to the many letters of support submitted by residents, and they have noted that they would prefer to see a sensitive residential scheme rather than existing lawful use and buildings to remain. I would also like to highlight that national planning policy does not seek to apply blanket protection to the countryside, with protection being a term now only applied to designated areas and other valued landscapes, which my site does not fall within. The mere fact that part of the application site lies outside of a defined settlement boundary does not therefore automatically render the site unsuitable or that it causes harm to the area. The proposed dwellings have been designed to be in keeping with dwellings in and around the area, being of Essex vernacular. I am sure members would have noted in the press the government's views and approach to reviving the economy. I'd like to stress that the economic benefits arising from this scheme, including temporary employment during the construction and additional spending within the village, as well as tax receipts for the parish and district council, are also worth noting in these current difficult economic times. Finally, I would like to highlight that from the outset of the scheme, I notified the case officer I was willing to make the RAMS payment, and the lack of a legal agreement to secure RAMS payment has not been raised as an issue during the determination of the application, and this could have been easily overcome. I can confirm that, should members be in support of this scheme, the relevant payment will be made prior to the issuing of a decision. I genuinely believe this is a positive application, not only because the local community support the scheme and that it would support the local economy, but because it would positively contribute towards the landscape character of the area and residential amenity. We hope that members can see the many benefits of the proposal. Thank you for your consideration. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Right, and do any other officers need to speak before I move the recommendation? Okay, that is that planning application 2486 Navoli Farm Purley be refused for the reasons as detailed in section 8 of this report. And again, it doesn't require a seconder, but it would be, it's always nice to have one. Members, anyone prepared to second?
Yes, I'm happy to second that.
Thank you, Councillor White. Okay, well, you're the board member. Would you like to start us off?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I mean, I have to say the current approved application for one larger house I'm really happy with. And it's not the planning approval that's the problem, so much as the design just doesn't work. You know, I think it's incorrect to say that the area's got lots of terraced houses. It's got lots of nice big detached houses, and the application that has approval actually meets with what's in the area. And I think the design is just cramped, and I think it is out of keeping in the area. And although we need 2-bedroom houses, this application is just going to be an eyesore. I know the buildings, I know what they look like, but this is not the best use of land. It's not the best design. And although I had a lot of letters of support, I had a lot of letters of objection as well. And it is the design that came up more than anything else. So I agree with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much. I have Councillor Durham. I've lost my place on the chat, I'm afraid. So I think I have Councillor Durham. Do I have anyone else?
No, Chairman, just Councillor Durham has indicated he wishes to speak.
Councillor Durham.
Yeah, thank you very much. I agree with Councillor White, and I agree with the officers. I certainly can't disagree with the applicant's comments that there's little architectural merit in what is there now, but that, in my opinion, doesn't overcome the divergence to the LDP, nor does it overcome the cramped and out of keeping nature of the proposed dwellings. And I really, think that once again the officer's done a good job and have summed up adequate reasons why this should be refused. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have anyone else on my list. Does anyone have anything particular they'd like to add, or does anyone wish to speak against? Councillor Jarvis, I think that is. Thank you.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, I do apologise because I seem to be having a bit of a technical issue. So for jumping in, I just wanted to ask. I could see the letters of support regarding sort of 2-bedroomed accommodation, and it's that sort of principle of the fact that permission has been given already for a property. If there is indeed a demand for 2-bedroom properties in the area, I just wanted to, has some research could the officers comment on that? I mean, is that true, that there is a big demand for 2-bedroom properties in the area? Because if in principle it is, putting the design of these particular properties to one side, it will be difficult not to find some agreement with the principle of putting up 2-bedroom properties as opposed to a large property. And I just wanted to debate that particular point, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Chairman. The strategic housing needs assessment that forms the basis of the LDP highlights that there is a shortfall in 2-bed and 1-bed properties within the district, and that's why our policy on the allocated site example is bringing forward 60% on smaller properties. So there is a shortfall, but that wouldn't. The LDP is designed to meet that demand. That's the point of the policies. So providing additional properties conflicting with the LDP, I don't think would weigh in favour of this particularly, especially as you said, it's one large property being replaced by a number of small properties that would all create needs for cars on a day-to-day basis, all require further levels of paraphernalia. So the urbanisation would be exponentially larger, and the harm from it being in this sort of location would also be greater. So professionally, I don't think that. I understand the point you're coming from, but the weight that we should be giving it is very small in this instance, I would say. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Officer Lee. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Bamford, please. I know it takes you a moment to unmute. I'm sure you're coming.
Sorry, Chairman.
That's fine. I know that. I appreciate the difficulties.
I couldn't get out of the chat function. I'm sorry about that, Chairman. Yes, I just wanted to second the recommendation and to emphasise that although the applicant stated in the report that that Michael read out that there was a lot of local support, I note from the officer's report that the parish council has objected. So I can't see that there can be that much of a support for, it's not everyone in the local area that's supporting this, is what I'm saying, which seemed to come across in that applicant's report that was read out by Michael, which doesn't seem to be the case. So I am, as I said, seconding the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, I have Councillor White. If there's no one else, I'll just ask Councillor White to sum up for us, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, absolutely. It's creating a terrace of houses, of effectively townhouses in the countryside. And I had letters of objection as well as letters of approval. It wasn't just one way. It was split about 50-50. So, and I agree with the officer's recommendation. Oops.
Oops. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's wrong button. There, yeah, thank you.
Right, and let's have anyone else to speak. I haven't been notified of that. Miss Bird, could we just have a roll call and a vote, please? This is on the officer's recommendation to refuse, as it's written in the report. Thank you.
Yes, Chairman, of course. Members, as before, if you could just indicate for, against or abstain, please. Starting with Councillor Bamford, please.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Durham.
For.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jarvis.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Keys.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Siddle.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Thompson.
For.
And Councillor Miss White.
For.
Thank you very much. Chairman, the results of that are is 7 for, so everyone's for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that application is refused in line with the officer's recommendation. So now we have item 7. It's our third and final planning application. It's the Bungalow Green Lane, Little Totham, 20601. There is a member's update in relation to this. You can find the main part of the report on pages 47 to 60. In a moment, I will call the officer to present this item. Usual reminders about using the chat function. Thank you very much. Ms Parker-Haynes, if you'd present the report, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Planning permission is sought for the internal refurbishment of a building and the change of use of land to residential. The external refurbishment of the building started in 2009 and was completed in 2010 and is claimed to have been used for storage since then. Advice was sought from the local planning authority in 2009 prior to the refurbishment, whereby it was advised, as the building had not been occupied since 1980, that it was in a state of disrepair, uninhabitable and not liable for council tax, that it was considered that the residential use had been abandoned. This is the location plan. This is the block plan. These are the proposed elevations, as there are no external changes proposed as part of this application. Proposed floor plan and roof plan. The existing floor and roof plan. Photographs of the site. As mentioned previously, it is considered that the residential use of the site has been abandoned. In relation to abandonment, case law provides 4 determining factors: the physical condition of the building, the length of the period of non-use as a dwelling, whether or not there had been any intervening use, evidence of the owner's intention throughout the period of non-use. Whilst the supporting statement claims that the building has been used for storage since 2010, it is not considered that this would be substantive in the claim that the building has been actively used as an independent residential unit. This is similar in nature to the position that the council came to at the time of the last application earlier in the year. As no further argument has been submitted, it is not considered that there is any reason for the council to come to a different conclusion at this time. This application is recommended for refusal as the site lies outside of the defined settlement boundary of Little Totham, where policies of restraint apply. The proposed development is poorly located relative to facilities, services and sustainable modes of transport, and therefore any future occupiers would be heavily reliant on the use of the private motor vehicle. Furthermore, the proposal would also substantially alter the character and intrinsic beauty of the countryside and would detract from the open character and nature of the site as a result of the domestication of the site and inclusion of associated residential paraphernalia. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Again, under the Council's public participation scheme, we've received a submission from the applicant. We've reviewed the submission and an officer, Mr. Johnson, will read out this, allocating again the 2 minutes for the reading. Mr. Johnson, please, if you're ready, off you go.
Thank you, Chairman. Submission from Thomas Luke Whitney, the applicant. Dear committee members, having read the case officer's report, we would like to bring the following points for consideration. With regard to the settlement boundary, the bungalow was occupied when the envelope was created. We have seen the boundary being moved to accommodate other applications in recent years, including in spaces that were not previously residential. Although the council can show a 5-year housing plan, there are no affordable properties in Little Totham. The reason that we have chosen to submit this application is because we wish to live closer to my parents. Their property is also in Green Lane and is a registered small holding. As they advance in years, they will require help maintaining the land. I grew up in Little Totham and wish to stay permanently and contribute to the community. The report states that the application could spoil the look of the countryside, but the building would remain the same externally, and we are not seeking a change to the current footprint of the building. We would also be using soft boundaries, providing more homes for wildlife. Other projects have recently been approved for large houses, which would cause more vehicles in the village and the same public transport issues. Green Lane itself is private and has been maintained by our family for many years. The committee report only briefly touches upon the fact that the existing structure is lawful. We believe greater emphasis should have been given to the efficient reuse of an existing structure to provide a new home. We are happy to make a financial contribution to RAMS. We feel that the neighbouring properties would not be affected, as it is only the internal detail that will change. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any other officers need to contribute before we go on? Okay, so I'm going to put the recommendation, which is that the application for the bungalow Green Lane be refused for the reasons detailed in section 8 of this report. I'm not going to look for a seconder, it's too long and complicated. That's on the table, members, and Councillor Siddle, you called it in and you are one of the ward members. Would you like to start us off? You have the option.
Yes, please, Chairman, thank you.
Okay.
So this is an existing building, and there has been a bungalow on this site since the 1920s, and previously it was occupied by the applicant's grandparents. So in terms of the urbanisation, there isn't really a change here. So there isn't any urbanisation. It is an existing building. The officers state that there aren't facilities to this property. That applies to every single house in Little Totham. We have no school, we have no shop, we have no bus service. So really, in terms of this application, that can't be seen as something relevant. One of the things in terms of the report, it says there's no comment from the parish council. That's incorrect. The parish council did write in on this, and they do support this application. In terms of it being used for alternative use, say for a business or something like that, that would increase the traffic. There would be more traffic. If this is a 1-bedroom bungalow, then we're not going to see an increase in traffic. It provides necessary accommodation. As the applicant says, there is a shortage of this type of property within the valley, within the village. It is well screened. It's not visible from across fields. There are already lots of hedges and things around it. So again, I can't see it having a detrimental effect on the countryside. So when this application originally went in this year, I didn't call it in because I thought it was quite obvious that really this should be something that should be passed by the council. So when the applicant reapplied, I felt it necessary to call it in because this is really the sort of development that we should be supporting. It's only 80 metres outside the settlement boundary. It's already in existence. It's already a building. We are now putting a redundant building back to good use. And that's all I'd like to say.
Thank you very much. Councillor Keys, you are the other ward member. You could speak now or wait or whatever you like.
Yes, I'd like to speak.
I don't actually have anyone else. If you could put yourselves on the chat, please, if you would like to speak. Sorry, Councillor Keys.
I totally agree with Councillor Siddle. I cannot see. Hello? Oh, someone else speaking? Yeah, I can't see why the council have gone to this really, because this, as Councillor Siddle said, this is what we need in these villages. You know, the place has been there you know, as long as I ever remember. And I think it's correct. Councillor Siddle have called it in, and I think I would put an offer in that we go against the officer's recommendation. And I believe this should be passed, please.
And I'm happy to second the proposal by Councillor Keys.
Thank you very much, Councillor White.
I hear you, but we do have to deal with the recommendation first, so we'll do one and then the other if necessary. And I have Councillor Durham to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I have total sympathy with Councillor Siddle and indeed Keys on this, but unfortunately, a development boundary is a development boundary, and if it falls outside, be it by 80 metres or 800 metres, you know, we have to draw, excuse the pun, we have to draw a line somewhere. And you know, I take on board all of the comments, and certainly there is very good reasons why this dwelling should be put back into residential use. But that's why we endured the process of putting a local development plan, and we can't pick and choose, I'm afraid, between you know, things that comply with the LDP and don't comply with the LDP. So I shall be supporting the officer's recommendation, please.
Thank you. OK, I have Councillor Jarvis. I also have Councillor Keys, but I think I might let you round up at the end, Councillor Keys.
And Chairman, I believe Mr. Lee wanted to come in as well.
Oh, right, absolutely. Let's have Councillor Jarvis first then, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I just wanted to say that just regarding Councillor Durham's comments there, I mean, I'm aware that this is outside of the LDP, but I mean, if it was simply that black and white, as councillors, we really wouldn't have much of a role in making these decisions. So I think actually I'd sort of counter that point. I think the whole point is that there are cases where we have to consider the very fine points of argument, and you know, and that if we do go against officers, that's, you know, that's when after we've done that. So I don't think it's that black and white. On this particular case, I think there are some factors that were mentioned which we're not supposed to take into consideration. They're not planning considerations, however sympathetic one might be about family history, etc. But purely looking at it from a sort of planning point of view, there's a property there. It's and the points that Councillor Siddle made, I think, quite eloquently, are correct. It's the fact that the parish view isn't on the officer's report, I think, is disappointing. If the parish have expressed a view and got it in on time, that should be there. I think that's always very useful.
On the update, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. That's always very useful to see. So I think you know, there are some good points that have been made, and I think the point is that you know, we are supposed to look at exceptions. So purely from a planning point of view, I think in this particular case, in terms of services that are available, as Councillor Siddle has said, Little Tottenham, and I did live there once. You know, you could say that about almost any property in Little Tottenham, so I'm not sure if that's that relevant. I think it's a fine case, but bearing in mind exactly how close it is to the boundary, and bearing in mind the type of property that's being built, I think I would sort of probably find in favour. And I'm sure the officers, when they looked at it, this is quite a finely balanced case. And so I think I'd probably be minded to find in favour of the application. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Keys, I am going to let you come back on everything at once. So I'm going to come to Mr. Lee, but just before that, I'm going to say my issue.
That's fine, thank you. With
the family matters, you know, we can't give a personal permission, so that's why the main reason why we can't take family considerations into account. I believe that's right. Mr. Lee, anyway, and I also have Councillor White to follow Mr. Lee.
Chairman, and Councillor Bamford was asked to speak.
Oh, and Councillor Bamford. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I thought it was just appropriate to come back on a couple of points that have been made. The debate's moved on a bit since they were first moved, so I'll try and accommodate them all in one sort of response. As Councillor Durham said, there are planning policies and there are boundaries for a reason. Legislation is clear that a plan application should be determined in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. In relation to Councillor Jarvis's point, I don't think actually this was a balanced decision at all in officers' minds. The site is outside settlement boundary. We have won numerous appeals on sites that are actually closer to settlement boundaries than this site. There are not the day-to-day facilities. There are not close proximity to sustainable transport, etc. in this site. We, as an authority, and all authorities really, come to a decision about where we put those settlement boundaries for a reason. And quite often, even though there may not be facilities within a village, you create a settlement boundary to allow some growth and development around those villages. That anything outside of that is contrary to policy, and you would need to show why this had particularly special circumstances. Many of the points that I've heard debated so far literally could be used to any existing building outside a settlement boundary in some relative closeness to an existing settlement. And I'd be very worried about members taking such an approach, because those decisions like this are used against us and are used to show an inconsistent application of policy. The site has been abandoned, certainly the applicant even acknowledges this, and so any of the opportunities of that there was a bungalow, there was a property there in the 20s post have fallen away. They aren't a material consideration because the abandonment has happened, and so that, alongside the personal circumstances, should not be given any real weight in the determination of this plan application, because they would be flawed. And I think the applicant in his submission said about affordable housing. This is not affordable housing in the planning definition. This would be a personal dwelling for a individual who wishes to live in the district, and it is no different to any other development in that such. So members to go against the recommendation, they should obviously, they have to give us a reason for approval if they do. But what I've heard so far was, in my professional opinion, is very generic and does not talk to this application. It could be the exact same things, words that could be used and could be used against us for almost any application around the district, because it is just a structure outside the settlement boundary in this instance. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Right, I have councillors Elaine, White, Durham and Councillor Keys. If we could do it in that order, please, unless anyone objects violently. Councillor Bamford.
Thank you, Chair. I've been looking through the report and I can't really understand the application. Now, this is a Section 73A application, so I wanted, for the purposes of the rest of the committee, for the officers to explain what that actually means. And it does say, for the refurbishment of a building and the change of use of associated land to residential. Now that concerns me a little bit. So I just want to make sure what we are being asked to consider here. And I'm very wary of the fact of what Mr. Lee has said, that we must abide by our policies in the LDP, and we shouldn't get emotive about this. You know, we have policies in our LDP, and if we start saying no, we're not going to take any notice of them, that's where we become, may become a problem for this council. So could I ask, Chairman, through you, for an officer to just explain to the committee exactly what this application is? Thank you.
Thank you. Right, I have Mr. Lee ready to go. 73A and
Thank you, Chairman.
Land, please.
The application is partially retrospective in nature, and that's what Section 73A relates to. As in, some of the building works have been taken and they're looking to regularise that. Residential, that is obviously the site. The applicant is looking to use the area edged red. To be honest, if we can get Ms. Park Haynes to show the whole site plan, that'd probably be helpful.
Are we actually talking about curtilage as opposed to further land for further development?
That's a very, very complex question, Councillor Thompson.
Okay.
Yeah, curtilage isn't set definitively like that. So as members will be able to see the site plan, that is what the applicant is proposing to say would be residential land, that whole site, and that's what the application is for. So that would be argued to be curtilage, yes, potentially in future arguments, but if members would go against the recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, if it's, sorry to come back, if it's not curtilage, what is it?
There can be garden land. Curtilage.
Yeah.
So it's all to do with the legal definition of curtilage, which is a very subjective matter. So there's a slight variance and differences. So that's the issue where I wouldn't want to be making a definitive statement just off the cuff on that point.
Okay, I'll worry about that when we get there. Councillor White, please. Councillor White, are you having trouble with getting out and escaping the chat function?
Madam Chairman, it didn't. The order didn't want to turn on. No, just to say that I treat all applications as they come to me, and I treat every application separately. Now, the first application from a barn to a house that we had earlier today had a totally different outlook and a totally different planning history. And I honestly don't have a problem with this. The building's already there. It makes no difference to me whether it's for storage or whether it's for residential. It's there already. The family are on site, presumably they're living somewhere on site. So I don't have a problem with it. We are creating one small house. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Durham, and then we'll come back to Councillor Keys, if that's all right.
Well, thank you, Chairman. I don't wish to bang the same old drum, but Mr. Lee has put his argument extremely succinctly. We mustn't lose fact of that we are sitting as a planning committee obliged to, which is a quasi-judicial procedure, obliged to follow our written and agreed policies as agreed by the Secretary of State. Now, we have to put aside sentimental reasons or any other reasons why we go to the trouble of establishing boundaries. Councillor Bamford is absolutely right that the implications leading on in the future are really quite grave and quite considerable. Now, I say again, I have total sympathy with this, but we have to follow the rules. In fact, we have to follow the law. And, unless we're going to change the boundaries and change our LDP, we really owe it to the district and everybody else to follow. It's not one rule for one and one for another. I'm afraid the LDP, long and hard fought, is there for a reason. And that reason is to guide the granting or refusal of planning applications, and that's exactly how the officers have interpreted this. And sorry as I am for the applicant, I stick by what I say. We have to, for the future and the well-being of this authority, follow the policies in the LDP. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have Mr. Lee, and I also have Councillor Siddle. So I'm conscious that Councillor Keys has been waiting a long time. On the other hand, Councillor Siddle called it in, so I'm going to go in that order and let Councillor Siddle be the final speaker. But Mr. Lee first, then Councillor Keys, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Just wanted to come back on Councillor White's point. And yes, she's right that each application needs to be determined on its own basis, and I accept that most members do, and I include Councillor White in that. Variances are taken into account different applications. But what I would say is that the wording that was put forward by herself at that time, and seems to be the general consensus of some of the members that have put forward, is that there is a structure on site, and there is a building on site, and that because the family are living on there in a caravan at the moment, that makes it acceptable. If that is the reason for approval, any future application for a building on site that someone would put a caravan in that we were then to look to refuse would be able to be used against us, because we are going against it, our own policy, simply on the basis that there is currently a building there and potentially there might be people living it there. You need to be able to show what are the special circumstances for this application, and everything that has been said so far, at the level of evidence so far at least, is very generic in my professional opinion, and seems to apply to just because there's some form of structure there already. The first application, to go back to that, was for demolition and the construction of a new dwelling, but previously using that barn, because use that as an example, as a house, had been refused by the council and had been dismissed at appeal. That is the sort of consideration you should be looking at as a point of guidance, as a material consideration, is what has the council done before, what have inspectors supported us with before, and that, for example, that actual planning history on the first application site is a clear and precise example of how members should be looking at, and not just members, anybody, the decision maker, so it'd be whether it's an inspector, whether it's officers, whether it's members as the committee, of how we should be applying our policies and weighing various material considerations. I understand personal circumstances are emotive, and sometimes, you know, they do make you want to support a scheme, but they are not a material consideration in this application. And I think members need to be conscious that any application that is determined that is not in accordance with our development plan will be used against us. And unless we can evidence why we have gone against our development plan, it puts us as a council in a very, very difficult position in the future to be able to defend our LDP. And at the moment, I'm not hearing or seeing any specifics that weigh in favour of this application above something like the one we had first thing with the planning history. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, well done.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Keys, we finally got to you. I'm very, very sorry you've had to wait.
No, that's fine. Well, I've heard what Mr. Parker Bowles and I've heard what Matt Lee said, and I've heard what everybody else has said here, and I don't understand the word. I've never even heard of what Councillor Durham said, quasi something. I don't know what that is. But this is one of the main, or the only reason, or I suppose one of the main reasons I came on Maldon District Council was for the planning side of it. Now, local knowledge. Now, doesn't matter who lives there, what lives there. I've got nothing to do with that, family history or anything. This is a property that is 80 metres outside the curtilage or the LDP, whatever we want to say it. This is there, and I still stick by what I say. I think we should go against the officers on this, and I'm sure we can come up between us for a reason for this to be passed. And really, that's all I've got to say. I cannot see a problem. There's a dwelling there. Let's just make it back into a dwelling. And I'm sorry if I'm going against the officers. I'm sorry if this may cause a load of aggravation down the garden path when we come to other applications, but I'm sure we've got to take each application on the merits that are in front of us. And the merits I see in front of me, I personally cannot see a problem with this application. That's all I've got to say. I hope Councillor Siddle's got something else to say, but I do sympathise with the council on this, but this one in particular, I can't see a problem with. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lee, you're obviously desperate to come.
Just for clarity, there is not legally a dwelling on that site. There may well have been historically, but it's been abandoned, and that's what the decision the council's come to, and the applicant hasn't challenged that. So the applicant does accept that historically there has been abandonment. So I think members just need to be clear of that this is not a case of it's a replacement of a dwelling or you know, there's previous permission, you know, something like that as material consideration. There is not a dwelling on this site legally, and although there may have been historically, that has come and gone, and that needs to be clear in members' minds when they come to termination of this application, because otherwise you could be misdirecting yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Durham, I'm going to ask you to be very, very quick, please, because I need to get to Councillor Siddle.
I'll be extremely quick because I sit here absolutely aghast, Chairman. Nothing against Councillor Keys per se, but the length of time that he's been on this authority, to say he doesn't understand the quasi-judicial nature after all of the planning training that we had, I'm absolutely staggered, and it does not absolve us from the fact that we have to follow the rule of law. And well, I honestly think that by granting this, we will be opening a horrific door, and we certainly should not. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Now, I know you're desperate to come back, Councillor Keys, but I'm not having a ding-dong across the floor, which is what this is going to become very shortly. Councillor Siddle, please.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
The officer says that this is an abandoned building. It may have been abandoned, but it was never knocked down. It's always been there. It's always been in existence. Over the last 6 months that I have been on this year especially, we have passed numerous applications that are outside the settlement boundaries. So there is a precedence for this. There are other situations. There's been some in the Great Totten Ward. There's a barn recently that was outside the settlement boundary that was past planning permission. So there is a precedent for this. So yeah, it's not that this building is going to be magically appeared. It's appeared. It's there. It's been there for a very long time. And what we're doing here is returning an abandoned building, which is a residential building, back into use. And that's the sort of things that we should be doing.
Okay, thank you. Well, constitutionally, I have to put the recommendation first, and I don't know which way that's going to go, but we will have to have very, very specific reasons for approval if we end up going that route. Right, members, I'm seeing hands up, but we're going to start going round and round in circles. And I would like to put the recommendation to the vote, please. So, Miss Bird, can you take the roll call? We are starting on the original recommendation to refuse this application for the reasons given in the report. Miss Bird, from the top.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, members, vote against for refusal, as Chairman just mentioned. If you could just indicate if you're for, against or abstaining, please. Starting with Councillor Bamford, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. I totally agree with everything that Councillor Durham has said, and I'm for this recommendation.
Thank you very much. Councillor Durham. At 4, Councillor Durham.
I think that was a 4. I think I saw a 4. Councillor Durham, can you just confirm, please?
Very definitely a 4. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jarvis.
I haven't got my sign.
Apologies. Thank you. Councillor Jarvis, please.
I think each on its merits. I'm against.
Thank you. Councillor Keys.
Definitely against.
Thank you. Councillor Siddle.
Sorry about that. Against.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Thompson.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Miss White.
Against, because I treat every application on its own merits.
Okay.
So, Chairman, the results of that vote are 3 in favour, 4 against and no one abstaining. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the recommendation falls. I need a proposal. I think we have had a little discussion about this, but Councillor Siddle, did you have one at the ready? And then we need reasons for approval, which will, satisfy the legal requirements and therefore our officers. And then we'll need a seconder once we've thrashed through some of that. So,
okay.
Councillor Siddle, unless someone else has an oven ready one.
I don't have an oven ready one. So I would, my recommendation would be to approve this application on the fact that it returns a building to use there, and that the conditions are that it is approved with the existing design and structure of the building.
Okay, now what we're about to be told is that we need to address each of the proposed reasons for refusal. So it's about the rural location.
So there is no further urbanisation. It is sustainable because the unsustainable applies to every single house in Little Totham, as I've already said. And it is already screened from other properties by hedging and trees.
Okay, and we would in fact need, I'm going to have to take some professional advice on this. One of the reasons is the lack of a completed legal agreement, so I would suggest we put in a condition.
The Chairman, if members are to,
Mr. Lee,
if members to approve this, I would recommend that it was delegated subject to the completion of the Section 106 agreement. So that, just like at the moment for all applications that are overturned, or even applications normally that have come to committee that are up for approval for housing, they're delegated for the completion of the Section 106 agreement. So that would be my recommendation rather than it being determined at this time.
Okay. Any other conditions or any other thing you want to mention?
Obviously, it's a new dwelling, so my suggestion would be that we should delegate conditions to officers just to make sure that they're fully robust. Obviously, we'd have the plans and times and all that, but that would be my suggestion on a more complex application such as this, and with consultation with yourself as chairman. The only points I'd want to raise, obviously, is in the argument towards the why this application should be allowed, is that Councillor Siddle said the summary of it is that as there is a building on site, there won't be any increase in urbanisation, and that this is a sustainable site. That in my professional advice, is a very, very dangerous reason for approval that could be used against us repeatedly, because what we're saying is that any building that is there in theory can be used for residential purposes without causing any urbanisation, which is something obviously we've robustly defended and won numerous appeals on. And also that this is outside a settlement boundary, it's some 80 metres, and it's 80 metres outside of a village that has no real services anyway. And such an approach, my advice is that it's very dangerous, because there is nothing site specific about that in the reasons for approval. It is very generic and will be used against us. That's all I'll say. That would be my advice to members. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, I'm going to run some of that past Councillor Siddle. I have got you, Councillor Jarvis, and I will get there. Right, Councillor Siddle, are you happy to incorporate Mr. Lee's suggestions as to conditions and the 106 delegated in consultation with me, and I would actually add the ward members to that?
Yeah.
And it is consultation, not agreement, but I think we should all three of us.
Councillor White is also stating in the chat that the reuse of an existing building from B1 to A3.
Oh yes, I see. Yes, B1 to 8. Yes. Okay, got that.
Chairman, for clarity, our policy does not support that, and we've won numerous appeals on that whole argument that our policy doesn't support that, and that but also the site doesn't have.
So can you come up with it? So Mr. Lee, could you come up with something that we could use? Yeah, rather than
professionally, Councillor Siddle, no. This is a scheme that is contrary to policy 100%, and I see no material considerations that weigh in favour of the scheme. I'm more than happy to assist members where I can, but in this instance, I can find nothing that supports the granting planning approval for this scheme. It is 100% contrary to policy, and I don't see anything that weighs in its favour. All I see is it being contrary to policy and being a very dangerous decision that will be used against us and authority time and again. It's within your gift to come to the decision that you want to, but I will provide you with my professional advice as always. And my professional advice is that I cannot see a reason for approval on this application, but as always, it's within your gift.
So I think we go, because it's a change of use to residential as the main reason.
Right,
the whole point. Sorry, can I just say the whole point of having planning committees is so that members can, as Councillor White is saying, that we can determine applications. That's the whole point of it. I understand that most applications are delegated to officers, but the whole point of these sort of things is that we as members can make these decisions, and it's important that we are able to do that. I will give way to Councillor Jarvis.
Okay, right, members, could you please not use the chat function, because it's not available to members of the public. Well, not without a freedom of information request, it isn't, and I think they have a right to see what we are saying. So, Councillor Siddle, your reasons for approval, as you've just outlined, have we got that? Have we got that, Miss Bird, Mr. Lee? That we're reusing an existing building, and sorry, just remind me, please. Councillor Siddle.
Sorry, I didn't know whether Tara had been writing down what we said. Councillor Jarvis is also wanting to say something.
Yes, but it's your proposal, and
okay, so I put forward my proposal.
I'd like to have your views, and then you may or may not accept amendments, or we may or may not vote on it.
Okay, so I have put forward my proposal.
Okay, and Miss Bird, have you got that?
Yes, Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second it.
Right, it's seconded. Councillor Jarvis, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I understand Councillor Siddle asking Officer Lee whether he can assist us on this with his expertise, but I do understand Officer Lee has clearly given his view on that. I mean, I'm looking through the reasons for officers recommending refusal, and that's where I sort of start. In terms of impact on residential amenity, I mean, it seems to me, in fact, there's a very low impact. In terms of access, parking, highway, that seems to be one resident seems to be a very low impact on parking or highway issues. And in terms of the countryside and general landscaping, I mean, I would have thought Councillor Siddle's pointed out this has a very low impact on the sort of countryside look. So I don't know the exact policies. Officer Lee knows them much better than me, but that would be the sort of area that I'd focus on. That this has a very low impact on the character and sort of countryside locally there. And that would be, I'm not sure if Officer Lee can assist us in looking at that avenue, that area, to find a reason for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Lee, do you have any comment?
Through Chairman, as members know, because we've discussed this many times, the reasons for approval need to either talk to the reasons for refusal or that they override it, such as, you know, benefits outweigh the harm or things such as that. The points that Councillor Jarvis has made, beginning bits about obviously it being policy compliant, I don't think obviously weigh in favour of the decision because those are points to be accepted by officers. But the latter points do seem to talk more to this specific application. As I said before, you know, the points that have been raised so far are very broad, very generic, and are not specific to this application enough, in my opinion, professionally, so they couldn't be used against us. That there is a building there on site, and that it is, because I think it's unbelievably dangerous for us to say that this is a sustainable site, because it clearly isn't in any way sustainable. And if members are to lay that down in a reason for approval, it's a very dangerous statement for the council to make. That's, you know, that.
Thank you. I think we hear what you're saying. Right, I'm going to go back to Councillor Siddle to see if he wants to. Oh, I've got Councillor Durham. Councillor Durham? Sorry, I didn't mean to have a heavy sigh because it's you, just that we're going round and round and round. Please go ahead. You're muted, I believe.
Yes, I've got my little second mute button. Yeah, thank you. We are going round and round in circles. We need to try and find a solution to this. I think, you know, the decision's been made, fine, but the reason for approval needs to be worded in such a way that it reduces the likelihood or the opportunity that this decision can be seized upon by other applicants. Now, I don't know how we do that. But yeah, if it needs to be very site specific so that we're reducing the opportunity to create a precedent. But I do fear the damage has been done. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Siddle. Oh, Michael, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson, please go ahead.
Yes, just a brief point. Obviously, as most members know, and Mr. Lee's pointed out, most decisions are made under delegated decision. We deal with many of these applications. We are increasingly being confronted by applicants who are keeping a careful eye on our 5-year housing land supply and making the argument as to, or that their case may be appropriate in certain respects and would tip the balance because of what they may feel to be the tenuous or otherwise nature of our 5-year housing land supply. This will increasingly become an argument as we're going forward. Now, I see and I sign off many of these decision applications on a daily basis, and I'm in a position to know how the development industry is reacting to the decisions that we make. This is in particular, these remote meetings are probably even more public than previously. So therefore, there will be people who have first-hand awareness of the nuances of the debate that we're making. And these again could become arguments that where we're holding the policy line as we do. It could then be open us to costs. We talked about the inconsistency of decisions more and more repeatedly. So these are the concern that I would like to raise at this point. And as my colleague, Mr. Lee, Councillor Durham has raised, this could quite easily come back to bite us. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Your hand's up, Councillor Durham. I'm afraid I'm not going to keep going around this loop. I am going to go to, it might have even been a legacy hand, who knows. I'm going to go back to Councillor Siddle to see if he would like to refine his reasons for approval at all. If he can see a way of making them site specific. Let's ask Councillor Siddle.
Thank you, Chairman. So my belief is that this recommendation should be approved because it is returning an existing residential building back into residential use. There is no harm in terms of the infrastructure and the surrounding area because of the nature of this, and there is no urbanisation. I stick to what I said before.
Okay, and you have all that, Miss Bird?
Yes, Chairman, I do. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Thank you very much. And you're still happy to second where we are with this, Councillor Keys?
100%.
Okay, thank you very much. Miss Bird, the roll call, please. So this time, after much discussion, we are looking at a proposal to approve this for the reasons just outlined by Councillor Siddle, and with, Mr. Lee's back, with conditions.
Delegate it.
Delegated.
Yeah, delegate the decision, not even approval. It'll be delegate decision because we need the Section 106 signed first.
Okay. Happy with that, Miss Bird?
Yes, Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you. So members,
but I'd just like to make sure you're comfortable.
Thank you. If you could,
if I might just come in, is it just the decision that the reasons for the decision that are delegated, or the entire decision being delegated?
Do you, Chairman? It's the whole decision. It's no different to when we have a major application and there's a Section 106. It's the same now. If any one house would come in and go through committee, the report doesn't. Members obviously determine to a certain extent, but it's actually delegated to officers subject to the completion of Section 106. It's, for want of a better phrase, it's a technicality of. It's just how the wording needs to be for. Otherwise, if members.
Will that come back to the committee?
No, you're delegating the decision, which is an approval to us.
Okay.
In consultation with myself as chairman and the
conditions,
as board members.
For example, even if we officers had recommended for approval, the recommendation would have been delegated the decision to officers to determine subject to the Section 106. It's basically just reflecting what would have been the wording if it had been an approval.
So we can't approve it regardless of the 106, but the 106 and the condition, they're the only things that could turn it down. We're not talking about you turning our
no, it's not about us overturning the account.
Okay, just to make it clear, in case anyone thinks it could suddenly be turned back into the office.
Technicality of wording. Thank you, Chairman.
But we can't. I think you're saying we can't approve it if there isn't the 106 isn't agreed and signed.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't be. Otherwise, if we actually approve it, we are saying we don't need the 106 and we don't care.
Correct.
Thank you. Have we all got that, members? So we are, in fact, delegating. Yeah, okay. Roll call, please, Ms. Bird.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, if you could just indicate for, against or abstain when I call your name, please. Starting with Councillor Bamford, please.
Sorry, I just want to clarify what we're voting on. We're voting on.
We're voting on. Voting on.
Please read it out.
With delegating that decision to officers subject to the agreement of the Section 106 in consultation with the chairman and the ward members. That's my understanding.
And these are the conditions of turning it down?
No,
conditions of approving.
Conditions.
In accordance with what Councillor Siddle said. So we're voting if we agree with the conditions that Councillor Siddle has put forward. Is that what we're doing?
Yes. And it's subject to, Mr. Johnson's got his hand up, I'll come to him, but we cannot just approve it now because we don't have.
No, I understand that, Chairman.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know what you're asking us to vote on.
broadly speaking, we're approving in principle. We're agreeing with the proposal in principle, but the actual decision has to be delegated to get everything else in line. Mr. Johnson, please.
No, I just wanted to point out that Councillor Siddle hasn't put forward the conditions. It's the reasons, it's the principle behind it. The conditions would be pretty much standard that we would put on any new dwelling, and that we would confirm with the chairman. In terms of the legal agreement, there is, in a sense, a sort of legal requirement for us to have a legal agreement. The legal agreement refers to a designated European site, which, as an affected authority, we're bound to protect. Hence the need for securing the legal agreement. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Thank you. I think I've got it.
Sorry, Chairman. Sorry, Chairman, I'm still not clear on what I'm voting on.
Nor me.
Okay, I'm going to go back to Councillor Miss Bird. Poor Miss Bird. Could you please read out what you think we're voting on?
Chairman, the reason that Councillor Siddle gave was I'm just going back to it. Sorry.
For approval. Okay.
For approval.
Right.
Sorry.
Well, then I'm against.
Right.
Well, hang on. Does anyone else need it read? I don't want to make Miss Bird read it all out if we don't need it, but if anyone else would like to, please speak now.
No, it's okay.
Thank you. So, Chairman, the vote. If you're happy for me to take the vote now.
I am. If the others are happy, they know what they're voting on, which is basically a delegated approval. It's subject to the necessary legal agreements and conditions being agreed, but it won't turn into something that isn't an approval unless one of those fails. Thank you.
Chairman. So starting with Councillor Bamford, please.
Well, I'm against the reasons.
Okay, well, that's the proposal, so, okay.
Councillor Durham.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvis.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Keys.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Siddle.
For.
Councillor Mrs Thompson.
Against.
Councillor Miss White.
For.
Okay.
Chairman, the results of that vote are 4 in favour, 3 against and no abstentions. Thank you.
Thank you. So that, in substance, that application is approved, but the delegated part is the conditions and the 106 agreement, and that will be handled in consultation with myself as chairman and the 2 ward members who are Councillor Siddle and Councillor Keys. So, thank you everyone for that. Our last item is a non-event. Any other items of business the chairman of the committee decides are urgent? There are none. So item 9 is closure of the meeting. Members, thank you for your contributions this afternoon. We thank you also to all officers, everyone who's supported us in the background in IT. I'm going to close the meeting at whatever time you say it is, Miss Bird. I think it's 14:23. Members, now the meeting is closed. Members are advised not to enter into any further discussion on this forum, and please leave the meeting promptly. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Chairman.